Before the stars and stripes ever flew, before the ink dried on the Declaration of Independence, there were warriors watching from the tree line. Not British, not American, native. Some fought for the king, others for the rebels. But all were fighting for something older: land, family, survival. This is the story of the war behind the war, the forgotten struggle of Native Americans in the American Revolution. When the first shots rang out at Lexington and Concord in 1775, the colonies were not alone in turmoil. Across forests, rivers, and mountains, native nations watched closely, calculating their next move. Some hoped to remain neutral. Others chose sides, believing they were choosing survival. But the war between Britain and its colonies became a war that cut through Native America like a knife. The Iroquois Confederacy, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, the Creek, the Delaware, all would be drawn in. The British wanted allies, the Patriots wanted land. Native nations just wanted to survive. Few native alliances were more impactful or more tragic than those of the Iroquois Confederacy. 6 powerful nations had stood united for centuries, but the Revolution shattered that unity. The Mohawk, Seneca, Onondaga, and Cayuga sided with the British. The Oneida and Tuscarora stood with the Americans. In 1777, at the Battle of Oriskany in New York, native warriors clashed on opposite sides. Mohawk war chief Joseph Brant, a staunch loyalist, led attacks alongside British forces. Meanwhile, Oneida warriors fought with Patriot militias. It was one of the most devastating civil conflicts in Native history. Brother against brother. Confederacy torn in two. The Iroquois Confederacy would never fully recover. Farther south, the Cherokee also faced a difficult choice. Some leaders, like Dragging Canoe, saw clearly that the American settlers meant expansion and destruction. In 1776, young Cherokee warriors known as the Chickamauga began launching raids against frontier settlements across Georgia and the Carolinas. They hoped to push the settlers back and to keep their lands. But the retaliation was brutal. American militias burned more than 50 Cherokee towns in a campaign led by Colonel Andrew Williamson. Families fled into the mountains. Crops were torched. Villages were erased. Yet Dragging Canoe and his followers fought on for years, even after the war ended. To the west, in the Ohio Valley, war was relentless. The Shawnee, Miami, Delaware, and Wyandot were not fighting for Britain or America. They were defending their homelands from both. In 1778, the Shawnee laid siege to Fort Laurens, the only American fort in Ohio. They disrupted supply lines and defended their territory fiercely. But the violence escalated. In 1782, one of the darkest chapters of the war unfolded: the Gnadenhutten Massacre. Pennsylvania militiamen brutally murdered 96 peaceful Christian Delaware, mostly women and children, who had chosen not to fight. They were accused of aiding raiders, but no proof was needed. They were bound, bludgeoned, and buried in mass graves. The Revolutionary War wasn't just fought with muskets and cannons. It was fought with betrayals and genocide. Some native nations, hoping for a peaceful future, allied with the Americans. The Oneida and Tuscarora provided critical support to George Washington's army. They brought bushels of corn to Valley Forge, guided troops through treacherous terrain, and served as scouts. Oneida leaders like Hanyeri Tewahangarakan and Tianajanegan, his wife, even joined battles. Their loyalty was praised, then forgotten. After the war, their lands were not protected. Instead, they were carved up in state land deals and pushed toward the margins. No Native Americans signed the Treaty of Paris in 1783. No tribal nation was recognized in the new republic. Yet native blood had helped win the revolution. One of the most complex and controversial native figures of the war was Joseph Brant, or Thayendanegea. Fluent in English, educated at an Anglican school, and a skilled military leader, Brant believed the British would protect his people's land. He led Mohawk and other Iroquois warriors in numerous campaigns, including raids across New York and Pennsylvania. But when the British lost, Brant knew his people had no future in the new United States. In 1784, he led over 1,800 Mohawk and Loyalist native families to Canada, resettling along the Grand River in what is now Ontario. There, he built schools, churches, and a political base for the Six Nations, refusing to let his culture die. The American Revolution birthed a new nation, but for Native Americans, it marked the beginning of centuries of displacement. Some allied with Washington, others stood with the king, but no matter the side, the result was the same: broken promises, lost lands, silenced voices. And yet, native nations endured. Their languages still speak, their stories still echo, and their descendants remain, carrying memory like fire through the generations. If this story challenged what you thought you knew, if it opened your eyes to a hidden side of the American Revolution, then share it. Subscribe to Native Historian for more untold stories, lost voices, and the wisdom of the first peoples of this land.